introducing the Circular Cricket Gear project that's been funded through the NISA programme with monies from UKRI. And the project really, as it says on the tin, is around circularity aspects and cricket gear. And the main protagonists in the project are ourselves, the Centre for Sustainable Design at the University for the Creative Arts, and also the Centre for Natural Material Innovation at the University of Cambridge. We've got a range of members of the team that represent different skill sets, from materials engineering to entrepreneurship to product design to knowledge about the fashion sector to long-standing circularity and sustainable product, sustainable business knowledge. And we also have a wider consortium involved of partners in the project, British Standards Institution, BASIS, Pediatex, who are a supplier of vegan leathers, Gun & More, Sports Labs, and a professional player. So the project itself really is focusing on the gear used to play cricket. And cricket is the second largest sport in the world and is going through a lot of change, particularly with the advent of the shorter form of the game, the 2020-2010 format, and also the growth of the women's game. With increasing participation globally in different countries, particularly with the growing interest in India. And most of the activities on sustainability in cricket have really focused on the built environment, the broader climate change impacts of the game. And there's been very little research done around sustainability and the gear used to play the game: gloves, bats, balls, pads, etc. And perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, the Centre for Sustainable Design at UCA started to recognise this and started initial research and produced some reports that really indicated a real lack of knowledge around the end of the first life and end of life of cricket gear. What was going on, how much waste was produced and going to landfill, what was going on in terms of repair, reuse, refurbishment, etc. So as part of our development, we have a core focus around this particular project, and this project really focuses and aims to complete a feasibility study related to the circular design of cricket gear, and really address a number of key questions or key research questions, such as what are circular concepts and options for cricket gear? What are the implications of using alternative materials, for example, vegan leathers, particularly for gloves, for balls, etc.? And what materials could be developed to substitute for existing materials that have lower environmental impact? So what we've got is a sort of dynamic situation where we've got a series of projects that are going on that are feeding into this project, and this project is, feeding into itself, being very careful not to double count. And that includes a project that is really specifically looking at the potential use of vegan leather. We're additionally analysing a specific cricket gear reuse scheme. We're more broadly trying to analyse the reuse infrastructure for cricket gear in the UK. And we're also developing a methodology to measure the carbon impacts of reuse of cricket gear. And I'll now pass you over to my colleague Lillian.
Thank you, Martin. So in terms of project progress to date, we have conducted a creative workshop which consisted in the research and evaluation of circular economy aspects of the selected products, so in this case, cricket gloves and batting pads. Findings from the workshop indicated that reduce and reuse are perceived as the most feasible strategies for developing circular cricket gear. Most specifically, participants identified 4 strategies as the most feasible for batting pads, and these were to reduce the process waste, maximise ease of maintenance, increase access to spare parts, and increase the use of renewable materials. Discussion related to the implementation of these 4 strategies was limited, as this was outside the scope of the workshop objectives. So a next step within the project is to begin to explore potential design interventions to enable the implementation of these pre-selected strategies. Second delivery was to conduct a disassembly exercise, and this was for a pair of cricket batting pads and a pair of gloves. Preliminary findings from the disassembly exercise for batting pads indicate that the size of the shape of components or materials are cut based on experience. So this creates more waste as there is no layout plans that have been used for cutting. Also, the different components present an excess of material that is not required for a product's performance. So this also results in increased waste of materials and resources. There's also a lack of standardization of internal components that could potentially hinder the recovery and reuse of these internal components. As for the batting gloves, findings indicated that the size and shape of the components and materials appeared to be cut using precise molds. So there is no waste within the product. A recommended focus for product sustainability is on identifying alternatives to bovine leather that is used for the palm. Also, based on the material properties that are required for the batting gloves, the palm appears to be the component that is most likely to deteriorate during use. And therefore, it is recommended to focus on design features that could enable the replacement of the palm. A streamlined LCA was also conducted, and this was for a pair of batting pads. The LCA was conducted using Sustainable Minds software, and it's a first attempt to assess the environmental impact of cricket batting pads, as no previous LCAs for cricket have been identified. The findings from the LCA indicate that the highest impact is related to the manufacturing stage, as most of the materials used to produce the batting pads are from virgin non-renewable sources. Also, we identified issues related to supply chain, as the majority of these products are outsourced. They're produced outside the UK in, for example, northern India. The LCA also indicated that the use of polyester for the lining and mesh are the highest contributors to the product's overall carbon footprint, despite only representing 220 grams of the overall weight for the batting pads, which is 1.78 kilograms. The study also indicates that the use of high-density foam represents the highest environmental impact in relation to human health, and this is due to its carcinogenic properties. This also has an impact on the social domain by affecting workers' health. Lastly, we have also developed a survey to gain insight into the different levels of awareness and interest in sustainability issues amongst cricket players, and to identify key product-related failures and assess reuse, repair, and refurbishment issues related to cricket gear. This survey is currently ongoing, and we expect to analyse and present results through a webinar in early May 2023. So now I will pass back to Martin.
Great, thanks, Lillian. So the impact to date relates primarily to learning by the project partners, including ourselves. And one of the aspects that we learnt in analysing the circular economy and circular design terminology being used in standardizations and trying to apply that to cricket gear is that some of the terminology needs further clarification when we apply it to cricket gear. There are some sort of nuances of some of the definitions and terminology that need to be further thought through. So we've also identified potential opportunities to design pads for ease of disassembly. Also identified potential over engineering of cricket pads in terms of the recreational market. Also the potential to reuse components in cricket gloves and cricket pads. And a number of components retain integrity that perhaps could have a longer life in first or second life products, and also challenges related to the refurbishment of cricket gloves. And we've put refurbishment there in italics is because we are yet to clearly determine if repair or refurbishment of cricket gloves is the right terminology when we're extending the life through we're extending the life of first life gloves. So some anticipated impacts relates to the production of early stage functional prototypes, input into new standards for cricket gear that are emerging, and within British Standards Institute, and part of that will be liaising with county cricket clubs and other stakeholders, and yet undetermined impact related to the increased understanding of users and players. The survey that Lilian mentioned, which we believe will be the first survey really trying to understand circularity aspects amongst cricket players, recreational cricket players. So in terms of where we are in the project, we're pretty well on track. The main things that we need to do in the second phase of the project is to harvest understanding as a white paper for stakeholders. We've got some work to do on life cycle analysis and sustainability, broader sustainability life cycle analysis of cricket gear. Then some work on the prototyping, and then dissemination of the results, apart from then the final report. And with all the activity, we probably will be looking to produce a paper at a slightly later date, because there's a lot of activity going on that would be very useful to further communicate to the research and other professional communities. So on behalf of myself and Lilian, I'd like to thank you very much. And if you're interested in anything further on this, please come back to us.